Welcome to the Behind the Girl Boss podcast, where every woman's journey takes center stage. Join us in this safe space as we explore the ins and outs of business, career, mental health, the music industry, and more. Whether you're a go-getter or a dream chaser, we've got stories for you. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for an exclusive backstage pass. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and entertained. Welcome to the ride. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to the podcast. So today we have another guest with us and we have Veda. So hi Veda.
Hello.
Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a women's health practitioner. That's what I do for my job. I help women get to the root of their gut and hormone issues that might have been brushed off for years by their doctors, brushed off as normal. I have always grown up in Maine. That's where I'm originally from, but I just moved to Tampa, Florida a couple months ago, and it's been really nice. I'm here with my boyfriend. But other than that, I love all things health and wellness. That's just like my absolute jam because I went through my own health journey and through recovering of all my symptoms and stuff, I grew like such a huge passion and a love for it. And that's why I do what I do today and help women kind of navigate what I went through.
Yeah, I love that. Before we get into all that, I like to do a little hot seat segment to kind of just break the ice and know little fun facts about you. So the first one is if you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I would have to do probably like a famous person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know like who specifically, but probably like a singer, like a country singer type of,
Okay.
like I'm into country music,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Maybe like Morgan Wallen, I guess. That's the only
Okay.
person that's coming to my mind for a country singer. But yeah, that's like a on the spot, definitely question.
Yes. No, I love that. And the next one is what's one TV show, book, or podcast you recommend everyone watch?
TV show Prison Break. That's
I've
by
never
far.
seen that.
Oh my God. I think it's on Hulu maybe, but it is the best show ever. It's like it was made quite a while ago and I
Mm-hmm.
like the show. So when I was first watching the first episode, I was like, I don't know if I can get into this, but I'm so happy I stuck with it. It's so, so good.
I definitely will be watching. And then the last one is what's one thing you can't start your day without?
Some type of morning movement. Like I feel like that just really gets me into the tone for the day of whether it's like actually going to the gym and working out or just literally going for a brisk walk or moving my body. I notice if I don't do that, then I just kind of feel sluggish for the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yeah, no, I feel that. So, going off of that and how you were saying that you had a bit of your own like health journey, can you walk us through that journey and what led you to basically teaching people how to balance their hormones and everything?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was in high school, I started dealing with some kind of weird symptoms. It started off with a skin rash over my face, and the doctors just said, go to a dermatologist. So I went, they were like, you need a better moisturizer. So that's what I did, but it didn't really get any better. But I didn't look too much into it because it wasn't really causing any physical pain or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple months later, so now it was December of that year, I got really, really ill. Like I was rushed to the hospital and I was like passing out. My blood pressure was like super, super low. I was going unconscious. I was extremely fatigued, all of these symptoms. And the doctors ran so many tests. Everything was coming back as normal. So I kind of just went back home and I was bedridden for like almost 2 weeks. I lost like 20 pounds. I had no appetite, crawling to the bathroom, tons of symptoms. But like the doctor said, I thought it was just a virus that was going to
Mm-hmm.
pass. So I just, whatever, you do what you do when you come down with something like that. And I started to get better. Like my energy came back, returned to school, sports, all the things. And a couple months after, the following year in February, felt like I got hit by a truck for the second time. So this time it was even worse. I felt absolutely horrible. All the physical symptoms came back. The doctors didn't know what was going on. They were like, it's fine, like it's going around, whatever they
Mm-hmm.
say. And this time I also started experiencing really bad mental and emotional symptoms. So I remember I just woke up one night having like a full blown panic attack and I didn't know why. Like I couldn't pinpoint something I was sad about or something I was super stressed about. I kind of was just like, like that's weird. And I started to regain my energy back like I did the last time, but I started getting all these other symptoms. So yes, I wasn't necessarily crawling to the bathroom or bedridden, but I would sleep 12 hours and I felt like I wouldn't
Yeah.
sleep a wink, or I was extremely bloated all the time. My skin was breaking out, my hair was falling out. I was having panic attacks daily that would keep me out of school. It was keeping me out of social events, all the things. And doctors just literally didn't know what was wrong. Long story short, my mom was working with a functional doctor at the time, and she's like, "Hey, you should check her out because my hair was literally falling out in clumps." And she's like, "That's kind
Mhm.
of alarming and scary, so we need to
Yeah.
check that out." So we did, and we got some functional blood work done. There's definitely some imbalances, despite the other doctors saying there wasn't any. And we started working on my diet, lifestyle, all the things. And we retested my blood work, and still it wasn't really moving in the right direction that we wanted to. So she ran a test for Lyme disease, and I ended up testing positive for Lyme. So I got officially diagnosed with Lyme about a little over 2 years after my first incident of being really sick and bedridden. And I was now in college at the time. And because I went undiagnosed for so long, I couldn't just do a quick round of antibiotics.
Yeah.
Like, I literally had to completely change my lifestyle. So I started changing my diet, changing my lifestyle habits. It took me a long time because it was just completely opposite of how I was living before. And I started to heal. Like, my body started to feel so much better. My hormonal symptoms, gut symptoms, all those things started to like lessen and lessen. And I was like, wow, this stuff really works. It healed me. And now that's kind of inspired me to do what I do today, because I know that there's a lot of women and men and whoever out there that are also struggling with similar symptoms. And they're kind of getting brushed off by the doctor of, sorry, like, we don't know what's wrong. It's
Yeah.
your age, just being a woman, like all the things. And I want to kind of debunk that and show them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's always like that, honestly, whenever you go to the doctors. And it's like so frustrating when you do all these tests and like everything like looks normal. So then you're just like, maybe it's like in my head or like something about me. Right now, like for Lyme disease, does it like ever fully go away, or is it something that like you deal with for the rest of your life?
Yeah, so it's something I'll deal with for the rest of my life. Like, it's forever gonna be in my system, but I have it
Mhm.
managed right now where it's not
Okay.
like quote active. So I don't have a lot of the Lyme symptoms. But if I fall off of my typical diet and lifestyle habits, then that's when I can get flare-ups.
Okay. And if we're talking about like hormones now, how do kind of hormones affect our energy, focus, and basic productivity in life and work?
Yeah, so they affect so many different aspects of our life. And a lot of people, when they think of hormones, like, they're just thinking of hormones. Like, they're just
Yeah.
thinking of, say, estrogen and progesterone, or like testosterone. Like, what are those specific levels doing? Or cortisol, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But there's so much more to it. And with my clients, who a lot of them do have hormonal issues, and it's never like the very first thing I jump on of like, okay, we need to lower your estrogen or whatever it may be,
Hmm.
because we want to figure out why. Like, why is your estrogen elevated or low in the first place? And it's typically due to just being under chronic stress, whether that's mental and emotional stress, physical stress, internal stress. But a lot of the time, people have gut issues going on, like hidden gut pathogens that are overgrowing in their gut that are actually disrupting their complete hormone imbalance. And as a result of that, you're going to get low fatigue, you're going to get brain fog, lack of motivation, PMS, all of those symptoms that we may not correlate with the gut, but a lot of the time that's where it stems from. And I think that's where a lot of women get stuck, is they either feel like they have one option of going on birth control, or they just like take a random supplement that helps lower estrogen or lowers cortisol, whatever it may be. But that will only get them so far, because they're not actually figuring out like the root of why that imbalance is there in the first place.
Yeah. And how do you like figure out that it has to do with their gut?
Yeah, so with all my clients, I do lab testing. So
Okay.
I do an HTMA test, which is a mineral test. It's at home, it's a piece of your hair, and it also can give insight into hormones as well. But then also I do the GI map, which is also done at your home. And it's like a snapshot of your gut, basically. So it'll literally show you that person's like gut microbiome, if there's an undergrowth or overgrowth of certain bacteria, your immune system, if you're detoxing like estrogen through your liver properly, if you have candida, parasites, H. pylori, any of those things, that is going to directly point to that. And then typically when we address that, that's when you notice like all of their hormonal symptoms naturally start to balance out.
Yeah, that's so interesting, honestly. I like don't know much about this. So let's say someone does have issues with their gut. What are like the first steps that someone should take to kind of healing it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I feel like my biggest tip for healing your gut is one, remove as many anti inflammatory processed foods that you can. Like, really, really hone in on that anti inflammatory diet of one ingredient foods, whole foods, things like that, because we want to crowd out as much of the bad stuff because we can do all the other things. Like, we can take the supplements or whatever it may be. But if we're continuously like putting food in our mouth that's just causing all that stuff to continue to grow, it's like going to cancel out with the supplement.
Hmm.
So that would be my number one tip. And also making sure that you're digesting your food properly. A lot of people just have digestive issues. So making sure you're eating in a mindful state would be my second biggest tip, because a lot of people are like eating on the go or they're skipping meals, not
Yeah.
really like fully taking time to enjoy the food that they're eating. So making sure you're prioritizing that your mind and body being in that digestive state when you do eat will help you then break down that nutrient dense food that you are now consuming.
Yeah. Say someone, because obviously, like eating disorders are also a very big and prevalent thing. So if someone deals with an eating disorder and is also trying to heal their gut and their health in like a healthy way, how do you kind of navigate that? Because sometimes like restricting foods could be like a trigger for someone. So how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, so I work with my clients very bio individually. So I will take that into consideration when I'm crafting their protocol and making suggestions. So if I do have like a client that has, because one of the questions I actually ask my clients on intake forms is describe your relationship with food. And if they mention like that they have a bad relationship or they feel like they have to restrict all the time and all these things, then I'm going to take that back a notch. I'm going to be like,
Mhm.
okay, instead of feeling like we're restricting and like removing, let's just swap it out. So, like, find your favorite pasta and let's just find a healthier alternative to that rather than completely removing it.
Yeah.
And then I work with that client. And maybe eventually we do get to the point where we can remove gluten or dairy or whatever it may be for a certain period of time. But at the end of the day, like, stress is the biggest thing that can cause so many hormone and gut issues. And if removing foods is causing more stress, then that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
So I really try to work with them and where they're at, like in that particular season of life.
Yeah. No, love that. So if someone's listening to this right now and they want to take some like new daily habits or small like lifestyle changes to help support their hormonal health, what would you tell them to do?
I would say my biggest one is to focus on blood sugar balancing. A lot of people don't know about this. They're not educated about it, nor do they really care about it because they haven't yet been diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes. So they're like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. But no matter what age you are, it is so important to prioritize your blood sugar management. And my biggest rule of thumb to kind of follow that is to never eat naked carbs. So when you go to eat, when you go to have a snack, even if it's something healthy like an apple or a bowl of fruit, always pair it with a fat and protein. Or if you go to have a piece of toast or you go to have some crackers, whatever it is, ask yourself, do I have fat and protein with this or did I eat it before it? And that's just going to really help slow that glucose spike down and prevent that blood sugar spikes, because if our blood sugars constantly spike, we're going to feel like we're on a roller coaster all day, every day. And it's just going to be a disaster for our hormones. So that would be number one. And secondly, really prioritizing stress. That can look like whether that's meditating, reading the Bible, whether it's journaling, like literally whatever it may be for someone, making sure you have at least one of those things to kind of prioritize every single day.
Mhm.
Also removing those inflammatory foods, that's going to remove stress as well, and living in accordance to your circadian rhythm. I think that was one of the biggest things that's helped me, and it can help a lot of people, is to literally live your life according to like the sun and the moon of like, okay, the sun goes up in the morning, that's when you should come up, that's when you start to do list, any of those things.
Mhm.
But nighttime, the sun's coming down. So that means you should start to slow down. So it's not the time to go do a hit workout. It's not the
Yeah.
time to like plug out a bunch of work and stuff and just really get into that routine because your body loves it. And that's really going to signal that it's safe so that it can heal and it can start to balance out your hormones.
Yeah. And if we shift a little bit to cycle syncing, what exactly is that? And could you walk us through the basics of that?
Yeah, so I love cycle syncing. It kind of aligns with the circadian rhythm piece. It's just like my jam because it seriously has helped me so much when it comes to overcoming a lot of my hormonal issues. But
Mhm.
essentially, cycle syncing is when you live according to the phase of the cycle you're in. So as women, we roughly have a 28-day cycle. It can range from like 28 days to 35 days for
Yeah.
a normal cycle. And there's four different phases throughout that. So we have the menstrual phase when you're bleeding, we have the follicular, we have the ovulatory, and then we have the luteal. And throughout those different phases, our sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, are doing different things. Sometimes they're rising, sometimes they're falling. And essentially, we want to live in accordance to that rise and fall. So, for example, the beginning half of your cycle, your follicular and your ovulatory phase. So, about day 1 through 15, 16, depending on the person. That's when that estrogen is like slowly starting to rise.
Mhm.
So you really want to embrace that. And you want to start like eating accordingly to that, focusing on certain nutrients that help with that estrogen metabolism. You also can pick up your workouts a little bit more because you have that more energy to do so. Whereas in the second phase, kind of after ovulation, throughout the luteal leading up to your bleed, you may naturally notice you start to feel less energized. Like you don't really want to go out, you don't want to go to the gym and do this crazy workout. And that's because your body is literally telling you, like, hey, it's time to slow down because estrogen is now decreasing, which is our energy hormone, and progesterone is
Mhm.
rising, which is our calming hormone. And just really focusing on lower intensity, focusing on foods that help support that progesterone boost and just overall will help prevent any type of PMS symptoms. It's going to prevent any type of hormonal issues down the road. It's something that a lot of people don't know about, but it's such a good tool to have in your toolbox that will really make such a big difference.
Yeah. How does someone track like the cycle and like know where they're at?
If you're on birth control, it's kind of hard to do the cycle syncing because
Okay.
your ovaries and brain basically stop communicating and your body's not making hormones, but you can still follow like the method of doing lower intensity workouts and eating these certain foods because that's overall going to be helpful for your body no matter what.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to figure out what cycle that you're in, I highly recommend taking your temperature, your basal body temperature. So just tracking it from day 1 of the very first day that you start bleeding all the way up until the next time that you bleed the following month, and just seeing what your temperatures are doing because you're going to notice that your temperatures start to like drop, 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 and then they spike, and then they drop, 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 and they spike. And it kind of is like this pattern. And that will actually help signify like what phase you're on based on like the rise and drop of that temperature.
Yeah. And what are some ways that like female entrepreneurs can align their schedules with their like hormonal cycles to basically have like the best performance?
Yeah, yeah. So if you're an entrepreneur, I highly recommend like when you are in that second phase of your cycle, so like the luteal phase, you just ovulated, you know your period could be coming up in the next couple weeks, is to slow down. So this isn't the time to book podcasts, book interviews,
Mhm.
book like things that really, really are going to drive your business forward and require a lot of energy, require a lot of your attention.
Yeah.
Like, save that for the first phase because you're going to naturally notice you're going to be able to give more to your clients or the people you're working with or to your overall business because you're going to have that energy. And also, when we're in that follicular ovulatory phase, you're going to be more creative. Like, you're going to have all these ideas rolling through. And those are the days where maybe you can work a couple more hours or you can not necessarily burn yourself out, but you can work like a little bit longer. Whereas in the luteal phase and when you're bleeding, like give yourself that empathy and that break of like, hey, I'm in this phase of my cycle, like I'm going to slow down so then you don't burn out. So then you can give 110% when you're in that first phase. So
Yeah.
overall, I would really focus on like in that follicular ovulatory phase is to like give your 110%, do all the things that really bring you joy and that you need to do that require a lot of energy. Whereas the second phase, I would recommend on just slowing down, like taking breaks if needed and kind of listening to your body with that.
Yeah. And currently, what services do you offer? And is it only online or do you also see people in person?
Yeah, so I'm entirely virtual. And what
Okay.
I do with my clients right now is I have a 6 month signature program. It's called Total Body Glow Up. And I work with clients to help them glow up in all aspects of their life, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the things. And we do the functional lab testing that I talked about earlier to
Mhm.
really identify any hidden imbalances in their body that's causing their acne or their fatigue or their weight gain or bloating or whatever it may be. And then we take that data that we found and I craft a very bio individual protocol for that person and then guide them through those next 6 months and work with them to really help them glow up and feel essentially better. So the symptoms that they did come to me with of being told that they don't know what it is, their doctor said it was normal, to then kind of debunking that and being like, no, they're not normal. You literally have imbalances going on in your body. The lab test is showing it. Now we're going to
Mhm.
actually work towards healing.
Yeah, love that. So the last one of our podcast, I asked you on Instagram to ask you questions, and I picked two of my favorite ones. So the first one is, what are some common misconceptions you hear when it comes to women's hormones?
I feel like when it comes to women's hormones, one, it can back off of what I said earlier, as people think it's just the hormones. Like there's always a reason why your hormones are imbalanced in the first place. Like that's
Mhm.
why, like I said, I never go to hormones first because it's really going to get you nowhere. It's like no different than a doctor of giving you a pill and being like, oh, hope this helps. But
Yeah,
you're not actually addressing the root cause. So I think that's very not talked about. And also the cycle syncing aspect is a lot of women don't know that like they literally should be doing and eating and all these different things throughout different phases. And like, okay, the second phase, you do feel a little bit hungrier. You want that extra piece of chocolate. And a lot of women will get mad at themselves and they'll be like, oh my God, like I can't stick to my goals. Why do I need this? But that's normal. Like your
yeah,
body actually needs more calories in that phase. And that's its signal of like, hey, give me more food, I'm more hungry. And then also lastly would be the birth control aspect. It's so disheartening of how doctors are just so quick. If you have a hormone symptom, here, birth control, it's going to fix
yeah,
all your problems. But they're not talking about it's also going to cause XYZ and all these other symptoms and make you not feel like you're yourself and all these things. And that there are other alternatives for birth control out there that don't require that like hormonal burden to kind of take place.
yeah, for sure. And then the last question is, what are three products you recommend anyone who wants to get into their wellness era?
I would say find a good skincare brand or makeup brand, whatever it is, something that like makes you feel good inside because that's gonna motivate you to kind of fall more into that healthy living
Yeah.
things because it's like everyone wants to feel good, they want to look good. My personal favorite is Clear Stem. I just absolutely love them. They're non-toxic, non-pore clogging, and they just have such good products that feel like you're glowing on the outside. So that's my go-to for that. Another wellness product is to get electrolytes. You don't realize how much you need electrolytes until you start taking electrolytes and you're like, wow, I feel like a new person. With the mineral test that I do with clients, like their minerals are always so depleted. So taking electrolytes can really be helpful for that. I love the brand Element, LMNT, or I
Mhm.
love brand Beam Minerals, BEAM. That's like my favorite. And then lastly, I feel like my favorite tool would be castor oil packs. It's
Okay.
so underrated. They're so affordable and easy to use. You can literally get them on Amazon, but it's castor oil. And then you just get the castor oil pack. And then you just put the castor oil on the pack. You can put it over your liver on the right side of your liver. And you just put some heat over it. And it literally helps detoxify your liver so well. And that's where hormones are metabolized. So if your liver's super congested from all the like toxic, yucky stuff we're exposed to daily, then that castor oil pack is really going to help break everything out so your hormones can then be better metabolized and you'll have less hormonal symptoms.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. I've never heard of that before, so I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. But that's all I had for you today. So thank you so much again for coming on and sharing all this. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure other people will as well. Before you leave, though, do you want to shout out any of your socials, where people can find you, where they can work with you?
Yeah, so I post a lot on Instagram and TikTok. It's Wellness by Veda, Veda. I also have my website, which is www.wellnessbyveda.com. On my website, I list like more about my services, I list my story and things like that. But those are the main areas that people can find me and learn more about all the fun health things that can really help move the needle in healing your gut and hormones.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.